hear me, Campbell?
I can. How are you going?
I'm going good, man. How are you?
Good. Thanks. Sorry about the mix-up, but we made it.
Yeah, we made it. Yeah, a little late for me, but I'm holding in there. got my got my coffee in hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, so man, thanks for taking some time. So you were out on the farm a little bit, huh?
Yeah, I was just walking around. I'm living on 150 acres, so I was just checking out where I'm going to put my house. Basically, I've got a yurt, but I've got to build some platforms and things to put it all on. So yeah, just
Awesome.
it's
Wow, I
good.
didn't
Yeah,
realize
yeah.
it was so big, man. 150 acres. I'm just on 1 acre.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, there's quite a bit of land here, so it's good. I mean, lots lots of work to do, right? But yeah, no, there's lots of space too, so it's good.
That's awesome. Yeah. So how's the transition been and the move?
Pretty good, pretty good. Yeah. Definitely good to be out of the suburbs.
Yeah.
No fences out here, which is nice, and so yeah, I've already met. Yeah, the elders, the original elders. I've had a few meetings with them, and met all the old hippies and stuff that are around, the original ones. So I've it's been good. Yeah, met all these cool people, and yeah. So now just getting settled in and thinking of what to do. We're starting some markets up, so getting right into the whole self sufficiency thing.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was
Mm.
looking at doing tapia ponds.
Oh, I
Um,
don't know about what's that? What's that?
yeah, so in permaculture, they farm fish, right, and then use the
Yeah,
water from the fish poo, right? So I was looking into there's this place where you can get tapia fingerlings, and then they grow to adult size in like 7 months,
yeah,
and
right.
you can harvest them.
Yeah,
So I was
right.
thinking, man, it'd be cool to have that recirculating, have the water going into the gardens and then pumping back up and recirculating back and then and feed, back to the fish. But I don't know. I don't know if I'll get to it. It's a big endeavor to, you know, put in those. I don't have a backhoe or anything, so it's
Yeah.
all man shoveling. Uh, yeah, it seems like something that'd be a really cool model because you got the fish to harvest,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
tapia.
yeah.
I love making like tacos out of tapia. So
Yeah, no, that's what we need. It's all these, new systems, don't we? That'll give us, that are multi-beneficial, I guess, that have serve more than one purpose, and
yeah,
integrate into a ultimately into a big system. Like that's. I mean, you can imagine if we had 150 acres and it was all one big system of different parts that are all interacting. I mean, that's kind of the goal, I guess.
yeah. Well, and that kind of gets me to the topic tonight. The symbiosis. I'll just read from the Oxford English Dictionary. Um, Symbiosis is an interaction between two different organisms living in close physical association, typically to the advantage of both.
Yes, yes,
Right.
the opposite
And
of a
I,
parasite.
yeah, and I saw something that you dropped in today regarding resonance. Put a video up that was like a short piece on what you were talking about with regarding, the resonant frequencies and the cathedrals. And so you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, the whole old world, Tartaria, whatever you want to call it, this kind of recent advanced civilization that there's a lot of research on, seems to have all been based on frequency, and a lot of that was sound. And so we have all these cathedrals everywhere, and they, of course, had, well, some of them still have, but they all used to have the big organs, the big pipe organs, which, of course, are frequency. They had choirs, the human voice, which is frequency. They had bells, which is frequency. They also have like cymatic shapes. So cymatic is like a geometric shape of a tone of music, of a frequency. So they have
Mhm.
windows in them that match these climatic tones. They have bits in the floor, the mosaic. So all these buildings, they all seem to be built around frequency and, sort of good resonant frequency. And, what we think is that they were basically pumping out, these frequencies and into the populace and, bringing harmony, right? Because they're harmonics. That's where we get harmony from harmonics. So that's literally what it was based on. I mean, all this stuff is in our language, but we've kind of been duped a bit into sort of what it actually means. But when you think about it, like most of the stuff is there in the language. They tell us, pretty much what's going on, I think.
Yeah. Well, before we dive too deep, I did want to ask you, you said you started creating content about 4 years ago. Like, what first got you into wanting to create content, and were you already hip to like alternate history and some of that before?
Yeah. I've been into ancient history ever since I can remember, and got into Graham Hancock in the sort of early 90s when he first started putting out books, and was following his work. And then it was probably about 8 years ago or so. So, 2014 or 13, there was a channel called New Earth. It's still up, New Earth channel. And they had a series called When the Survivors Wake Up. And it was one of these kind of long series that went, and it basically went through the story and opened my eyes to things like star forts, the mud flood and the mud flooded buildings, Tartaria, the actual land of Tartaria and the country and all this kind of stuff. And so I was just, I was just blown away pretty much, especially the star forts. I was just like, what's going on here? Because I've been researching this stuff for years and never seen or heard of any of this kind of research. So I was just watching that and getting into it. And one day I was just, because when I watch videos, I'm researching it on the side, like when they say something, I'm like, and I'm Googling it. And I found this star fort, Jefferson Star Fort in the ocean off the Florida Keys. I think it's a couple of 100 miles offshore. Largest brick structure in the USA, 60 million bricks. And I went, oh my gosh. So I just decided to make a short little video on it. Because there wasn't much out there at that time. There was maybe 3 or 4 channels, and I put it up, and pretty much from a dot got a really good response, and so I put another one up and another one, and it just kind of
I think you froze there, bro.
Oh, am I back? Did you get all that?
Yeah, no, I didn't get any of it. Yeah, so I got some of it, and just right up to when you were kind of after the fort down in the Keys.
Yeah. So I found that, and then I made a video about it basically, because there wasn't much around, and it was really just wow. I found it really interesting, so I thought other people might, and that was really the only reason I did it, and put it up, and it just. I can't remember the numbers, but it did pretty well. It was like 1,000 views within a week or something from a standing start of the channel, and then kept going. So I heaps of really good feedback. So I made a couple more, and then I actually lost. I actually lost my password and couldn't. So I had a really strange email. I couldn't get back into the channel. I got locked out for like 2.5 months, 3 months.
Oh my.
And I'd only had 5 or 6 videos up, and it was just something I just had done. And then when I finally got back into it, there was just all these comments. I'd had it was up to 5,000 subscribers, and the views were going crazy. So I was just like, wow, okay. And so and then all these other things in my life happened at the same time, pretty much. So because this was around the start of the whole convid, can I say that, operation, and so I got retrenched from work basically, so, and a few other things happened, so it was kind of something I could do, which was really, and so I just put a lot of effort into it, because I was enjoying it, and and here we are,
Yeah,
4 years
yeah,
almost
that's
later.
awesome.
Yeah.
So in all the topics, so you said Star Force are your favorite. So all the stuff that you've done, is that like your a total favorite, the one that just like you dive right into?
Yeah, I mean, Star Force, and they're probably still the biggest enigma out there. And I mean, they're just breathtaking, really, aren't they? Like when you start seeing how big they are, and wondering how they built them, what are they for? Because there's so much work has gone into them. That they've clearly got to have had a big. They've been used for something pretty good, right? Something pretty necessary. And I think personally that they've got to do with frequency as well. They seem to be shaped like cymatic patterns. They're associated with water. So it all seems to be part of this big system. And every city had a star attached to it, like one of these star forts. I mean, they weren't forts, but that's sort of
Right.
what they've been called.
Yeah.
Every city had one attached to it, and they were all walled cities. So, it's just when you start seeing these old maps, with these big stars and these amazing cities, it's completely different to what we've been taught about the past. It's much more like looking like at a fantasy, novel or something than what we're supposed to believe,
Right.
was
Right.
history. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll bring up some pictures here and a screen share in a minute. But something I think you were touching on in a video I was watching was the gardens at Versailles, and how that seemed to have been a big farm, right? Because we know like the founders come and then they insert the king, and the king takes and says, "I built this,"
Mm.
instead of "I found this," right?
Yep. Yep.
So, here, let me see if I can
Yeah.
bring
Yeah.
up
Versailles
Google Earth
is
here.
yeah. It's one of the sort of fully intact, or, mostly intact kind of, palaces, if you want to call them that we've still got. And it used to have a big machine back in the 1700s attached down on the river called the Machine of Marley, which was this
Mhm.
huge, had like, I think it had 20 massive water wheels, and it was pumping water up and through all the fountains. Basically, it was running all the fountains and stuff everywhere, and watering the gardens. And so this amazing technology, right, back in the 1700s. So
Yeah, so you can see I've got the Google Earth here
yeah.
over Versailles, and we see the main gardens. This is the most famous, piece over here being the King's Garden, etc. But what intrigues me is the old images that show like a mountain ridge here and a mountain ridge here, and where they just like did total terraforming on this area, and then also all the geometric patterns that we can follow, that go along with the canal systems, and then even over into other sections of the area, like here, where you've got all these streets coming into one major, central
Yep.
location here, right? And then the Seine River, right? And I really feel that like some of these roads that are now roads were ancient canal systems, and we can see,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that?
Totally. Totally. I mean, again, they kind of give it away in the words. Like in roads, we have traffic islands, we have lanes, which comes from shipping lanes.
Right.
So we have these nautical terms for the roads. But I'm in northern New South Wales in Australia, and where I am, we had like really bad flooding about just less than a year ago. Where I'm sitting was literally the only sort of high ground that didn't get inundated. Like this, most half this farm went under, and we're
Wow.
talking like meters. It went up over to sort of two-story buildings, the floods.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, because this area is full of old world buildings, but what this is what we think they've done is they've filled in all the canals and turned them into
Yeah.
roads, and so now there's no natural system to get rid of the water when it floods, and so when the water comes down, and so yeah, exactly, you get flooding. And I think that's, we see that everywhere, all this flooding that goes on, but you wouldn't put that much work into all this old infrastructure, these old world cities, if they were going to flood.
Right.
Their technology and their way of, because everything they did was thought out. Where we live in this society, where it's all just kind of thrown in and slapped up, and if someone can make $1 here, then they'll just do it. But the old world, it was all thought out and planned. So yeah, but they wouldn't be building these cities and all this tech and stuff, or if it was going to get flooded. So I totally agree. Yep, I think they've filled in all the, and it's all to do with the power, right? They stole the power, and that's why we go and vote people into power. Like they literally took it, and then now they are the power, and we're unfortunately, as a whole, letting them stay there, right? Like we go and vote between the two pillars, at the voting polls, all these things, and elect, they stole the electricity, so it's all to do with this power and all the terminology. And I think that's literally what it was. We had free energy. Water has current, of course, water current, electricity current. And when everyone has, free electricity, and you add in things like electroculture, which would have given them, abundance of food, and they had structured water, you can't control someone like that, can you? They've got everything they need. So the only way to take over is to take the power.
Yeah. And not only that, but we have the antithesis of all the free energy and the electroculture and everything happening with the Wi-Fi, with the cellular, right? With the towers that are all around, and they're in, and even the wiring in our buildings, right? That are 60 cycle or 60 hertz, right? That's not congruent with our frequency. It doesn't work. I mean, my goal eventually is to have build a bedroom off the main house, right, where there's nothing in there. It's like an old 1800s cabin with no power, no circuitry, stay away from it so I can sleep without all that
Faraday
influence.
cage. I've seen, I think you can even buy we can definitely buy EMF sheets to put over 4-poster beds, but I've seen people building Faraday cages around their beds. And a Faraday cage is just a cage that'll stop any, electrical interference coming in. But yeah, everything is,
you can get EMF paint too right now.
Can you? Yeah, right.
You can get EMF paint, and then that to me, that's much better. Just paint the walls with it, man.
Yeah, but that's interesting, isn't it? Because that's what lead paint is. Do you remember that we used to have?
Which is
that's what we used to have it.
Like mercury, exactly. Right?
So they outlawed it. They outlawed it, but that shielded against all this radiation. But this is what they've done: is we had a big, a macro system, a big open electric free energy system, and they've taken it and they've given us a closed micro system. Right, which they can control. So it's a closed system, and because we have to get the energy from them, we have to pay them to access it, and all this kind of stuff. And when we used to have free energy that was sent at the right, and cathedrals, right, literally built to pump out vibrations that kept us well and in harmony. And now they pump out stuff that does the exact opposite, right?
That's right.
So it's literally it's all an inversion. Everything that was good from the old world has been inverted and turned against us.
True. I think I've commented on a video one time when you were live, and I said, I think that it's your coffee chat. I think that Tesla was kind of just back engineering found tech.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. I put out a video last week called inventions from the inventory, and again we have these words, invention and inventory. So did they get the inventions from the inventory? Because that's what it looks like. It looks like they took all this, or they found all the tech. It was all in the buildings and the palaces that they took over, and they kept it for themselves basically, and back engineered it. And when they could get it to something that they could charge us for, and there's another electrical term, right? Charge us for, then they release it right back, and so it's now it's harmful to us basically, and it's used as a weapon. So this is what it looks like has gone on, because we know with all that there has been, so many good inventions, free energy, right? Water cars, all this stuff, that's all real. And you look into the people who were behind it, and they have a tendency to disappear, or to be unalive.
Well, like Stan Meyer, right? That guy actually designed the Myers Toad and the Myers Manx. These were off-road dune buggies that were like in the late 1960s that they were using down in Baja. My father was actually an official at the first Baja race in 1967. And so I went to my first Baja race at 7 years old. But anyway, these guys were innovators, and and I mean, I've read, who knows if it's true, that the first Model A ran on water, right? And then Rockefeller made Ford switch it over to burn his fuel. And there we go. And here we are after all these
years. They definitely had electric cars, 100%, in the late 1800s, like that were more efficient than the Teslas that they offer us today. They had, charging stations like for these cars, like big charging stations around, all this kind of stuff. And then, of course, it was a Rockefeller, that family. They were into oil, of course, so they wanted everything to burn oil. Because another thing is all the cities, all the old world cities had tram systems. And now, now it's like they've left them in a few cities, and it's like like this sort of thing that people go and see. But they were in all the cities, and Rockefeller ripped them all out so he could replace them with buses that burnt petrol and oil. So literally, again, it's just another example that all this tech that was free and for us, built to sort of that everyone could enjoy, is being taken and turned against us.
Yeah, and and it seems like anyone from that period, like 1850 to like 1900, the turn of the century, if they had strong memories of what had happened before or what the world was like before, they got thrown into those huge insane asylums, right? Where it was like, I mean, they could, the number of symptoms were just crazy, laziness, things like that they would just toss them in there for. Well,
anything.
He's against our narrative, and look at what we see now. I mean, just with social media, if you go against the mainstream narrative too much, if I say the wrong words right now, boom, we're gone. We're off YouTube. We're done. And so I've been in media a long time, I'm like 30 years in live events and broadcasting. And, I've always wanted to see a platform come out where it was just like us, where we could have control over the data. It could be, it wasn't like manipulated. I mean, even Rumble and some of these other platforms, I mean, if you do something that's still against their little byline, you're gone, and it's like, and so the more it's kind of funny. It's like going back to the old printing press, we need to disperse information in a different way sometimes, and especially to get ideas and concepts like this out. And it's like, I saw something recently where these guys had gone into a subway in London, and they just like printed these big leaflets and stuff and then taped them to the floor. And so all these people walking by, and they're walking right over this stuff that's information.
That was interesting, isn't it, Nick? Because everyone does look down these days, don't they, instead of looking up. But this is the thing.
The apocalypse, huh?
Yeah, exactly, right, into their scrying mirrors. I've done 5, I think, live events in the last year. So that's one thing we've started doing, is getting out and actually getting people together. And it's more, it's obviously, we put an event on, but it's a lot to do with getting people to connect, and they can sort of meet people in their area, which is a big part as well, because, obviously with what's going on, a lot of people sort of found themselves a bit alone. So, but yeah, I've also been talking about print as well. This is the thing. It's, there comes a point, and we seem to be getting pretty close to it, where, the cost is bigger than the payoff, right? So for all this technology, which at the start, because obviously at the start they give you all the benefits, right? And then everyone jumps in, woohoo, phones, video calls, all this stuff. And then when it becomes a part of your life and you're starting to rely on it, then they start to take, put in all the rules, take away all the benefits. But I don't see that this can go that much further. At some point, people are doing it already. People are getting rid of their phones already. People are getting offline already. So I think we're getting to the point, where people are going to, choose to do something different and to build communities, where we get back to, knowing, these people, it's like Facebook and, Instagram, all these things, all these people, that people are trying to get likes from, they don't even know them. It's this dopamine hit of, oh my God, all these people like my post, but they could be the most horrible people in the world for all you know. I mean, this is the thing. It's just about numbers, and we've lost that connection. And again, this is the connection, to nature, which is essentially the basis of the old world grid. This macro free energy grid. It was all built on ley lines. All the cathedrals and star forts are on vortexes where the ley lines cross. They're all sacred geometry, which is based on nature. So this is, I think this is where we are, right? I think where it's sort of getting very, very close to final decision time, and people are going to have to choose, and we can see what the choice is, right? It's 15-minute cities or nature. I mean, I think that's what's coming out, and it'd be great. And I hope someone's working on an internet too that's totally, sort of free and whatever. But as long as someone owns it, it's never going to be free and unrestricted, is it? But when you go and talk to your neighbor that lives next to you, that's always free and unrestricted, isn't it?
Yeah, that's open source right there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and and I think you're right. I mean, it's like we got to go backwards to go forwards, don't we?
But I think we do. But saying that, it at the same time, we're getting a lot of this. We're starting to work out a lot of this old world tech. Like a lot of the free energy machines are coming back. Electroculture, which I mentioned before, is coming back. We're starting to work out, how, pyramids. I talked to the guy who studies the Bosnian pyramid, and he was talking about how there's a 24 gigahertz beam going out the top of it, and it's a communications beam. So there may have been a communications network set up already, and all we've got to do is sort of rediscover it, right, and remember it, and start using that again. And this is all like you mentioned, the frequency. This is all frequencies that are conducive to us. It's not the 5G stuff or the 440 hertz. It's all back to natural, stuff that it will enhance our experience. So,
well, and so I mean, bottom line, we're electrical beings, right? We live in an etheric environment, right, which is water. Basically, we live in water, which conducts electricity. The Earth has a heartbeat, and that Schumann resonance is equal to our heartbeat. I can't deny like the electromagnetism of our brain. We're constantly firing. We're constantly making electricity. Let's look at the comments here for a second. Somebody's just spamming the comments, so I'll have to go back and delete all that. Totally disgusting. Yeah, all right. Well, whatever. That's fine. We're here for the conversation. That's horrible. Anyway, we'll deal with the OtterCat piece. But so I think the counter revolution now, I really think, is for us to build these micro environments in our own region, like you're saying, know your neighbor and know their neighbor, and and
Mm.
go from there. But also what we're doing by using Organite, right? By using the electroculture, by putting up the antennas. I mean, I'm doing that. I've seen an amazing difference, like in the plants growth, and how long it takes for them to germinate and
Yep.
sprout. It's like just reduced. And I've got like these sunflowers that are just going crazy right now, and all
Mm.
because I put those antennas up. And so something my wife and I do, we'll play like we'll play 528 hertz music, or we'll play 432 hertz music, or 10 hertz music, to change the atmosphere around us as much as we can, right? And then like I said, using that permaculture, putting out Organite, putting out those things, it's gonna affect the environment of our neighbor and the neighbors around them, because we're really kind of doing the antithesis, and we're now changing the frequencies around for the better, and we're putting
Mm.
negative ions into the air that are good for us and make us feel better. And then when we do go out barefoot on the ground, we're like, wow, that feels so good. Right?
Mm. Yeah. I agree. I think we've got all the answers already. We just need to get out there and put them in action. Because a lot of people are worried about, all this, all the poison and, the stuff they're spraying in the sky, and, oh my God, we're all so sick and all this. But, like you said, everything's frequency, right? It's not solid. And you can change frequency. You can mutate it. The work of Dr. Emoto shows us that, like literally writing the word, love, and sticking it to a glass for a few days will change the structure of it. So we have all the answers with things like, the electroculture and the Organite. I've got here. I just got given this.
Oh,
I can
yeah.
see that.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
All this kind of stuff. I'm covered in copper and tensor coils.
Yeah.
But we have all the answers, so we've just got to start doing it. And the best thing is, electroculture. It's just a bit of copper and wood. Organite. It's cheap and easy to make. Anyone can do this. It's not like you need an electrical degree to go out and build some of this technology. And that's what it is. It's tech. Which is the other good thing is all this old world tech. It was a lot more simple, and the truth is simple, right? The truth is simple. If someone needs to write a 3 blackboard equation to tell you something's real, they're lying to you clearly.
Right.
Yeah. So I think we've got all the answers, and we've just got to get back to that. But obviously that's why they spend so much time with education, right? They get us in there young, and they try and keep us in there for 15, 20 years, so that we come out the end not knowing anything. We don't know the connection. We don't know how this place works. We don't know who we are. And so we then start basically working on what the information they've given us, which means we just create the world they want, which is us having to pay for everything, right?
Being slaves to the system. But that's why I think, doing even, like somebody that lives in an apartment, they can do this. They can build something out on their balcony, right? They can grow at least some tomatoes, grow something, that's giving them sustenance. It's not coming from the major market, and that's where I'm at right now. Is I've been planting like crazy, all kinds of varieties of heirloom seeds and stuff, because I want to not be dependent on the market this summer. I've got like 4 kinds of lettuce and spinach and all this stuff. And then the other thing is, when we have the chemicals that are being injected into the meats now, we can't really trust the meat or the milk or, any of that anymore. And so we really have to counter it ourselves with our own production, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I see this as our way out, right? It was our way forward, out of their system and into the new world, right? The new earth, whatever you want to call it. And a lot of people, see this as bad. Again, oh, this is bad. Look what they're doing. But it means that we have to take, ownership of our food, right? Of our water, of what we're consuming. We have to be the final authority again, because this is the thing. Like, authority has the word author in it, right? They're authoring our story. They want to tell us what to do. They want to write our script, author it for us. So we've got to take that back. And we've got all the answers. It's one thing, like you said, if you just start, no matter how much space you've got, get some heirloom seeds, grow them, and collect your seeds. Let at least one plant go to seed every year, and collect the seeds off it, and then you've got some food security. But communities are going to be the big one. And, a lot of people think you need $1 million to get a piece of land and all this kind of stuff. But I guarantee you there is a lot of people out there. I know many of them who have land and want people to come and basically live there and help them out and to build these things. So, if you want to do this, I'll just say, just start working towards it, and just start imagine. Don't sort of get into that. Oh, how do I get $1 million? How am I going to do this? Because I'm, like I said, I'm living on 150 acres, and it didn't cost me a cent. I got asked here by Kelly, who's my podcast buddy, and she just contacted me out of the blue 18 months or 2 years ago. So. But I always had the vision I was going to end up on, on land like this, basically. And so this is the thing, we can create what we want, but they've got us thinking, no, you need money, you need to do this, you need to get a job, you need to blah, 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 go through our systems, right? Get a mortgage, which is a death pledge, all this kind of stuff. But we don't, we can just form communities, people have land out there, we can get on them. And they're talking now down here, because we've got a pretty good community. They're going to buy their own stock, their own cows and sheep and things before these mandates come in,
right?
And just produce their own. I can't say the word, can I? But clean animals, shall we say? So we've got all the answers, and this just forces us to do it. Like if you're sitting on the fence, like this is sort of the kick, right? Okay, we have to do it, or else what's your option, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and like you said, it's going to take community. It's going to take people coming together and saying, "Hey, man, get out of the city, come out here." And I'm kind of a recluse, I guess, is a good way of saying it. I got really burned out on the world fast, touring with rock bands. I saw the best and the worst of humanity, right? So it's like I'm we're looking for other climbs, and we may, as crazy it might sound, we may end up back in California, Northern California, or Southern Oregon, just because I know the politics don't agree with me at all. Right, but sometimes the safest place is on the front lines.
Yeah, it's probably cheap land out there too. Like,
everybody's leaving.
Lots of land.
There's there's still one Republican holdout county there up by Shasta. So the Shasta County is like the last Republican
Shasta.
stronghold.
Interesting.
Yeah. Right, where the vortex is. All the hippies are right on the other side in Ashland, and it's kind of crazy. But I just, and also I think that eventually barter's going to start making a huge comeback because of the scarcity. I see it. I see it now. I see people, or I see products that I could get a year ago even that are gone. They're just not there anymore. And I think we're just slowly starting to see the domino effect of stuff that happened to this chain, the delivery chain a year ago, 18 months ago. It's just slowly starting to cascade. And then all the crazy fires and wacky nonsense that's been going on with, chicken farms and cattle farms and things like that. I mean, it's just nonsense. But
Then that's again, that's why we need community and food security, water security. We need to take responsibility of all that stuff. But the other big thing is markets. We need to bring back the markets. That are just by producers out there with their stuff, and from there it's if you've already got everyone set up, then people can go and just someone's got tomatoes and they swap them for everything else they need. But that gives us a trading place, which is what we need. Otherwise we're going to end up with everyone with these crops that they can't use. So a big thing is markets. I would say definitely markets, and like we call them op shops, like secondhand shops. Where you have all just stuff that can be used. Because I mean, in this throwaway society, like, and it's happened so much in the last 10 or so years, all the good stuff's getting thrown out. People are throwing out like hardwood furniture and replacing it with IKEA. And I'm just like, what are you people? There's all these resources everywhere, which is another thing that just needs to be stocked up and sort of put somewhere where we can use them. And because that's the thing, we've got everything we need. I keep, I really believe that, and we just need to get this show on the road a bit more, get out there, build the communities, trust ourselves that we can do this. That it might be scary, making a move or deciding to live a bit differently, but really, what's the option at this point? I mean, what's the alternative? A 15-minute city where you have to scan everywhere. So I mean, that's literally going to be the option. So I'd just say get some friends, get together, find a community, and get out there and start doing it. Whatever you can do, even if it's just an apartment balcony, put some plants in, build a little copper antenna. And just start.
Yeah. Even your indoor plants, you can put up a antenna. Speaking of, I mean, we've done it on a couple of our like creeping Charlies, and went crazy. But speaking of community, so let me go here real quick. So I started a community website called The Founder's Life, and I'm kind of just like poking fun back. It's like, we're the founders of our modern age that are finding what really happened, that the founders destroyed, right? When they found the cities dead, we found it, and so I think, and so that's a play on words, but here, I'll bring it up here. Anyway, I think community, as you said, is the key. And I think we also just need to go congregate somewhere. So this is the founders.life. It's the website. I started a bunch of playlists here. So you can see I've got like permaculture, lost history, a bunch of stuff from you guys there, Tartaria, Star Force, water, free energy, electroculture. And so I'm just kind of getting this thing going, but I've got a forum. Basically, like you could join, you could make your own page, you could upload your content there, you could share, create groups, create topics in the forum. And I just think that we kind of do need a hub, for people like you and I to go to where we can connect with each other, and we and Facebook and all that doesn't cut it, right? We're not getting very far there.
No. It's got to you got to be on an uncensored platform. But yeah, I agree. We need to get together and share ideas and meet people and find out who's close to us, and then start actual physical meetups and groups. And this is why we started doing the live events, is to bring everyone together. And because another big part of that is, after the last 3 years, a lot of people were very isolated and they literally didn't have people to talk to. People, pretty much got, rejected from their families and things over the different topics that were around. So it's really important for that as well. That's kind of why over the last couple of years I've done a lot of live streams and a lot of premieres where you've got the chat just so people can talk, just to give them a place to talk, and they love it, especially, like I said, some people don't, that's their only access to talk, about real things.
Right.
So yeah, I agree. Like, we definitely need to build these platforms, these meeting places, all this kind of stuff and again, it's getting back to, the natural grid, right? Whatever you want to call it, back to nature, back to communication, but without the device in between. Because everything we do has this device in between, this electronic closed, micro circuit, everything pretty much. And so everything is going through, their system. And that means everything's distorted. Everything's coming out at a slightly different frequency, right? We're getting the wrong picture. But when we're dealing with humans one-on-one, like I said before, it's uncensored. But also you can judge, because people don't even know how to talk to any, we've seen this all over, social media, people losing their mind. People don't know how to communicate anymore. And it's because they're not interacting with humans. They're interacting with what they think are humans, but they're just an avatar on their phone, someone's persona, right? It's not an actual person. So I think we got to cut that bit out.
And I think that's the thing that hurt us the most during all that lock period, was touch, and just being in people's presence. But touch, big deal, right?
I mean, I shudder to think what's going to come out in the next few years. I mean, I'm lucky my children, my youngest was in, 2 years away from finishing school when this all happened. So, he was older, but the little kids, they're all babies, that for a couple of years didn't see mouths move, couldn't see expressions. Right. So they didn't learn that. And that's critical to knowing how to interact with people.
Right.
That they didn't, so they're going to have speech problems because they can't see, the mouth as it forms the word, all these different things. And then, of course, like you said, that the separation. I mean, all those pictures, of bloody parents taking their kids and the grandparents are on the other side of a piece of plastic or something. I mean, that's just trauma. That's just, it's trauma, right? And that's one of their biggest tools is creating trauma, and of course it's fear-based trauma, so that we've always got to be scared of something, but the truth is, probably everyone here at some point was afraid of the boogeyman, but as adults, we understand that the boogeyman doesn't exist as they told us. There's probably boogeymen, but you can spot them and they don't hide under your bed, right? And that was just all fear. I used to be scared of the dark, and there was nothing there. It was just fear that had been put into my head through television and stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's what we've got to understand is it's all control.
So, so we see this period, right? We see this kind of different periods, 1850s to 1900, 1900 to 1940s. I think pretty much all of the world wars, right, were to destroy the old tech. I mean, look at what they did to, Germany. I mean, it's horrific, right? All the old tech that was destroyed and all that. And then the progressive, it's like, what happened in 1947 when Byrd went down to Antarctica? What really happened down there, right? And then look at the progression from there. Then they make Israel a state. In 1947, also we had the first. They called it worldwide, but it was the first national television broadcast. NBC did in 1947. So all of a sudden now we roll into 1948. And we've got Israel as a new nation. We've got television as the new thing in everybody's home. And, television was used to influence what we purchase, what we like, what we think, of as a family, right? And then, the breakdown also, because you have people like Bob Hope, right? And these guys that would dress in drag and call it comedy.
Yeah.
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 And what were they really doing? So for me, it was like there was this real critical period in 1948. It's like, it's like, did Byrd find the edge in 47, or did he find the lands beyond? He talks about them in that one, that one interview.
The Longines chronoscope. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So he discusses it, but then look at what we see shift. And then we see the international treaty, all these countries that just came out of a world war that still hated each other, right? We'll just talk about Germany, East Germany and West Germany, right? You have these Russia and the US that hated each other supposedly. And then that treaty happens, and nobody publicly, you and me, can't get in a sailboat, and we cannot sail anywhere near that ice. Yeah. And especially like try and find a passage through it. And the same thing goes for the North. There's no way we could take our own expedition and go up there and try and do research with drones or anything to figure out what's really going on up there.
No, it's starting to rain. It's probably getting loud. Can you hear that rain?
Yeah, that's crazy. Wow.
Sorry, I'm in a tin shed. Oh, can you hear me?
Maybe I can still hear you over the rain. Yeah.
You can still hear me? All right. There's so much went on around that time, like you said. After that, obviously, we had, Project Fishbowl, Project High Jump. We had around that time, the project, what was it, where they brought Werner von Braun across. I've forgotten the name at the moment.
Operation Paperclip.
Operation Paperclip. Again, right, weird, all out of Germany, going to USA. So, there's all these deals being made. But what are they hiding? Why can't we go there and find out what's at the north and south? Oh, it's very loud.
Wow, that's crazy.
Can you hear? And I don't have any headphones. Right, sorry to everyone listening. I didn't realize it was going to start raining here.
Yeah, no worries.
Can you hear me okay, or is it too loud? It's very loud here.
No, I can hear you.
It's good?
Yeah.
So Admiral Byrd talked about extra land being at both poles, basically. And when we look at old maps, which is a big thing I do with my research, is everything that's kind of pre-1600 shows more land. Shows land at the north, which is called Hyperborea, 4 continents, and land at the south, which is, in a lot of the maps, there's no ice in Antarctica. There's green grass, there's animals down there, there's cities, and it's not a small continent, shall we say, at the bottom of a globe. It's this huge expanse of land. And, we have all these stories of all these hidden lands and lost lands and, all these kind of magical lands. Is this what's going on? Is this what's happening? Have we been locked off or maybe invaded? I don't know, but it seems that there's more land that we're not allowed to go and explore. Because literally, if you get a boat and go south from Australia, Tasmania, the Navy will come and meet you and they'll tell you to turn around. And if you don't, they will shoot you. They'll blow your boat up. Same in the north. And so we've got to ask ourselves, why is that? Why was the UN formed? Why is their map flat? Why is it surrounded by a laurel leaf, which is the Roman Empire? Why is it associated with all these other clubs, right? With all these clubs of Rome and all this. So when you look into it, it looks like there's 2 groups of people down here, right?
You know, and you can take this back to bloodlines, to the Bible, the 12 tribes, to the archons and that kind of narrative. But what it looks like to me is there's a group of people who want to be gods of us, right? They want to be the gods. But to be a god, you need to make the creation. So they've had to, this is why they've taken everything and inverted it and altered it so that they own it. And we pay homage to them, right? And we give them the power and we pay them money, right? The one eye. We give it to them in homage and we go and see them in concerts and on the stage and call them stars and all this kind of stuff. And this is pretty much what we're told, you know, the devil or the fallen angels and all these things. These are the traits of them. You know, the 7 deadly sins, an interesting one is the first of the 7 deadly sins is pride.
Yeah.
Have you heard much of that lately?
Yeah.
So all this stuff is in there. I just say they're not us. They're not, you know, we've in my opinion, we've been invaded, you know, by whatever. But yeah, we're in the middle of a takeover. That's what this point in time is.
But it's also, I think it's a time of the unveiling. All that's hidden will be revealed, right? All that's in the dark will be brought into the light. Now I'll be glad to delete all this stuff. But you know, so it's I think it's really imperative for us to communicate, to have open minds.
I can hardly hear you.
Oh, sorry, man. Yeah, maybe we should
reschedule.
Oh my Lord, listen to that.
All right, I think I'm better in here.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I mean, so the farm I'm on, it didn't have a house; it just had a shed, and so the shed got turned into the house.
Yeah.
And so out in the main bit, it's on a tin roof, and it can get pretty loud.
Yeah, no
but
doubt.
We need water, so that's good.
That's awesome.
So sorry, what were you saying?
I don't remember.
What was I saying? Oh, extra land. Extra land.
You know, we were just talking about the parasites and that we've been invaded, you know, and I think it's becoming more and more obvious. And what I was saying was that all the things hidden in the dark are coming into the light. You know, apocalypse really means unveiling, right?
Yeah, unveiling. Yeah. And so I'd say the devils are dancing. You know, that they're out on show, right? They're showing us who they are, you know, in everything, right? All this. And if you look into, you know, Baphomet and these types of figures, they are, I'll say the word transams just so we don't get in trouble, but he's a transam, right? Like, so there's all these connections. And I think that you know, you only have to watch like the music awards, right, to sort of see where this pop music and stuff is really going and targeted at our kids. So this really is, you know, like it's a dark, what we would call evil force. This is kind of the stuff we've been told about, and we're at the point now where most people just think that's fantasy. But you know, what's that saying? The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was making everyone believe he didn't exist.
Right. Well, and like you say, it's so in our face right now, but people have become so you know, just pacifist against it. I mean, the reason all this is rising up is because I also feel too, though, that some of the reason that all this darkness is rising is because there's a great light rising at the same time, right? Which they themselves fear. And I think that's this great awakening of minds, like, you know, people like yourself and myself that are like, oh, wait, man, that doesn't make sense. You know, all that stuff has been destroyed, erased, manipulated. It's like, it's all BS. We're finding out more and more. It's just all BS, no matter what it is. It's all propaganda. You know, I mean, you go back to the old dime store novels, right? That about Billy the Kid and the Wild
Yeah.
West, the Western expansion. That was all
Yeah.
dime store novel propaganda,
Yeah.
pure
Yeah.
propaganda,
It's
right? Because what was
exactly
really
that. I was just going to use that example. Yeah. Like
happening,
the
what
Wild
really
West is a complete scam.
right?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
was
Complete
really
scam.
going on out there? You know, they were
Yeah.
killing
What was
Mormons.
going on? Yeah.
They were killing
Civil
all the
War.
indigenous people that had been there for who knows how many centuries that built these
Yep.
cities, or that were the remnants of survivors that came up from underground, that came back, that had their ancestors built those cities. We don't know how long they laid under,
Mm.
you know, the mud, right? Before everything started
Mm.
getting. I mean, the photos that really blow me away are ones like up there in you know, in Seattle, and then also Missouri, where in Seattle, especially, where you got the big hydro hoses that are just washing down all
Yeah.
those buildings.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. And you got the buildings just standing up on this big pile of mud and stuff. Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it?
Right? You know,
Regrading it, they're calling it. Yeah.
and then tell me how 2,000 people with very unskilled laborers with them migrated into Salt Lake and built that temple.
Yeah, which has, I think, 7 floors at least underground
Right.
in that
Right.
temple.
Yeah.
That you know is not that they're not included in the story of where they built it. There's also a photo that I've got, and it's got next to the temple this big like dome, kind of those hyperdome that things. I'm not sure how to describe it, but basically it's got airport painted across the top of it, so you can only see it from the sky.
Yeah.
And it looks like it was for airships, you know, which is another technology that, you know, they give us the Hindenburg and say, oh, you know, blow it up, show it, you know, get it on camera, show the whole world. Look how deadly these are. We can never, ever use airships again. And they give us airplanes. But how many airplane crashes have there been?
Yeah. Yeah.
But we're still allowed to use them, right? Because they can charge us a lot of money and burn fuel on that. And I think also another big thing is in an airplane, you can't see the ground, right? You're up high. You can't, in an airship, you're low. You can literally look out the windows and you can see what's below you, right? So is that, you know, because they're hiding land and stuff? You know, we just don't know. I think what we do know is we need to question everything. You know, it literally is his story. It's not our story. It's written by the conquerors.
Mm-hmm. True. You know, I think my favorite episode that I've seen was with you and Kelly, was where you guys were talking about the airships, you know, and how a lot of these buildings were very likely like portals or hubs, refill stations, right? Where now we've got the, you know, the hydrogen being pumped out of the water, and the hydrogen is being pumped into the airship, and then they go back up. And like, I mean, you know, with all the wars and all the crap that was going on the ground, I mean, who wouldn't want to go live up in the air for a while, right? If it was sustainable, you know. I mean, who knows what's really up there? You know,
exactly. We have a lot of stories, you know, again from the past of, you know, like upper worlds, like what is it, Midgard, Asgard, you know, the tree of Yggdrasil, that kind of thing. Things over the rainbow, all these stories. So there could be something up there, because, you know, in all these palaces that are around, all these massive mansions and things, what we find is none of them have plumbing indoors. They don't have bathrooms. They don't have kitchens. But you walk outside and they have massive fountains. So they definitely had the technology for plumbing, but no bathrooms. So what were these buildings? You know, this is the thing. I don't think they were for, you know, human habitation. Were they just, like machines to refill airships? We don't know. Were they, you know, just growing? I mean, this is the thing. But I don't think most of these buildings.
Stations.
Docking stations.
Growing a garden for all the food that they take back up with them.
Exactly. Yeah. Just places to gather and have meetings maybe and discuss things, and then you get back on your airship and you take off. Yeah. Right. I mean, because these towers are everywhere. they're on all the old buildings, all these towers, and most of them got doors up the top and little balconies.
Mhm.
But there's nothing there, right? We've got photos of airships docking on the Empire State Building
That's right.
and the Chrysler Building and all these other, sort of skyscraper type things. So, but of course, we're not told about that. When I found those photos, I was just like, what? I couldn't believe it. Because that's the other thing. We're taught that under an airship, they have that little capsule that sort of sits underneath the airship.
Yeah.
And we're told that's it. Right, the rest is a balloon. You just get, this massive balloon, and all you get is like seating for 8 people. But that's not true either. I found all these pictures, and these things were like floating hotels. People were going inside them. So like half of that balloon was actually, restaurants and bedrooms and all this kind of stuff. And
I saw the photos with the ramp come down out of the front of the balloon, and they're walking out of the building up into the balloon.
Yep, let's walk straight into it. And this is, why would they hide that? This is really the main question: is why would they hide that? Why weren't we taught this kind of stuff? Control. They don't want us to know that we, had that, because it's probably pretty hard to go out and build an aeroplane. But we know that people, they were building airships back in around, the 1900 mark.
Yeah.
So this is stuff, again, that we could build and go out and explore with, right? But we're not allowed to explore. That's that's the main thing they've taken away, right? We can't explore. That's why they've all got us sitting at home in front of Netflix, not leaving, and they're introducing 15 minutes. You can't even go more than 15 minutes now. Definitely can't go to Antarctica or anywhere. Why? Why is that, right? That's the question, because there's stuff to find that they don't want us to find.
Right. And if there was more land, that means more potential for industry and resources and all that could become free because of their abundance rather than, it's a false scarcity anyway. Right. The whole
oil thing. Like what they're doing with fuel. Yeah. Right now they're doing it with oil, but they did it in the 70s. Did it 50 years ago, and everyone was scared that literally it was going to run out and there'd be no more oil 50 years ago. And all the news jumped on board, and they spread the fear 50 years ago. So clearly there was a lot of oil left. But now this is the thing. They say, it's, scarcity, that's all running out. But if we knew that there was other continents and all this other land that were full of it, they couldn't do that, could they? They couldn't say the supply is diminishing and that's what Admiral Byrd said, right, in that interview. He said there's all this land and it's full of all the resources that we could ever need, kind of thing. And so this is the scarcity to keep us in line, right, in fear. And this is why we have to grow our own food, right, make our own abundance, and then they can't control us.
Right. Well, it's a counter revolution for sure, but I think it's the evolution of our species. I don't want to see our species evolve into being Borg, right? I would like to see our species evolve into not needing a restroom anymore, right? A series I read when I was really young, like 17, 18, was called The Life and of the Masters of the Far East by Baird Spalding.
I think I had a couple of those books years ago. Yeah,
and it was written in the late 1800s, and it was about these guys that went to go find these Tibetan masters, and they were like historians and photographers and all these crazy geologists, all this crazy group, but they they went on this quest to go find out all this hidden information from these Tibetan masters, right? And the first 3 books is the first 3 years, and it's pretty incredible what they found and what these guys were teaching them, that they could live off the breath. They were literally not drinking water, not eating, not doing it. They were breatharians, right, or whatever they call it, and that's all they did. Just breathe, and they were fine. And so it's like. And as we talk about symbiosis, one thing in frequency that we're talking about there's also a symbiosis between the physical body and the spiritual body, and I don't think a lot of people really regard that enough anymore. It was cool in the 70s, you know, right? But a lot of people are like, oh, that's old hippie crap. Well, it's not, you know, and I think that's where we really need to get back to, is that spiritual symbiosis. And also because that spiritual mind frame, what it does is it then, you know, manifests itself through our electromagnetic frequency, our energy, what we're doing, our chi.
Yeah.
And so I just think that the more that we disconnect from the world, the more we disconnect from the narrative. It's hard for me. I work 5 days a week on a news TV program that goes out 7 days a week, right? And so I see this every day. And it's hard to disconnect from that when it's just kind of in your face every day, even though at least the people I work for have a, you know, they have a different perspective. They're not, you know, they're kind of like a spiritual version of Tucker Carlson, I guess is a good way to say it. But, you know, I just think that disconnecting, going out, grounding, doing whatever we can to just kind of be the antithesis of what we're seeing, their thesis, you know, what they're putting out is their narrative. If we can live the exact opposite and go, no, you know, like you said, I don't need 1 million likes on Twitter. I don't need 1 million likes on my Instagram. I don't care if 10,000 people watch this video. You know, I don't care. It's about exchange of information, meeting you, discussing these topics, you know, maybe doing some of these. And then also, I think, you know, I think doing virtual events might be a good idea too, where we could hold these big virtual conferences. We have the technology here to do it, you know, and then rather than it just being, you know, 5 guys talking for 4 hours about whatever, but there's actually some points and there's symmetrical, you know, delegated time, delegated speaking, delegated things where we could have a really good interactive conference, I think, on these topics, you know?
Yeah, I think, excuse me, I think definitely it's all about asking better questions, isn't it? You know, we've been taught that everything is about answers, and that when we get information, we have to judge it as right or wrong, good or bad, and all this kind of stuff. But to me, that's the wrong, right? That's their thesis. We need to do the opposite. You know, we don't, you know, things can just be. We don't need to charge everything as good or bad, because when we do that, we put that thought in charge of us, right? If something is bad or wrong, then that thought takes over. Whenever you get into that same situation, it'll just take charge, right? You don't think anymore. You're like, right. And this is, again, we see this everywhere today. People are just losing their minds and screaming, and they don't know what they're screaming about, right? They've just put that there's no information behind it. So I think, you know, this word belief, right? We can only do what we believe, you know. So I think if we ask better questions, we can, you know, get better answers, we can take different action, and that's change, right? As soon as we do a different action, we get a different result. And I think that's how we change, and that's how we prove to ourselves we can do things. You know, it is a step-by-step process. You know, you can't sort of jump from a corporate job to a organic farm in one step, kind of. You know, it's got to be a progression, and the progression is trusting ourselves that we can do something different. And what it is it's getting rid of the crap that we've been indoctrinated with. So it is a process, and it's coming to the belief that, you know, you can do it. It's all up to me. All this kind of stuff. You know, one of my favorite quotes that no one else really likes when I say it is, "It's all your fault, right? It's all my fault. Everything, everything in your life is your fault." And people think that that's a bad thing to say, but the thing is, if it's not your fault, you can't.
Oh, you froze on me again. Come back, Campbell.
Am I back?
Yeah, there you are.
No, where did you lose me? I was mid-sentence again.
I
But
don't remember.
but yeah, so basically we've just got to take our power back, build up our belief, take a chance. But yeah, this is why like online, that's what was going to talk about. It's all about questions, right? If we could get, places where people can gather and get different answers, different points of view, then they'll ask different questions. And again, you ask a different question, you get a different thought, you take a different action, and you've just changed your life because you get a different result. And that's how change happens, as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't have to be this big, thing. It's just do something different. That's it. See what happens.
Well, don't follow the lemmings that are jumping off into the cliff, right?
No, don't do that.
Yeah, I'd rather be thought of as lunatic rather than follow the lunacy that we see in the world today. Right?
Well, this is the thing, yeah. And we've got AI and all this kind of stuff as well, and we can see there's some trolls in the comments, but this is the thing. When we get back to dealing with humans, we don't have to deal with these trolls who and all these people do is it's like they're running out to the world and saying, look how programmed I am. It's like, I just don't get why people do this kind of thing. Like, do they think it makes them look good or something? But the other thing is we don't even know if they're people anymore. So all this social media and people fighting and getting upset, you could be fighting with an algorithm these days.
Right, so, absolutely, yeah.
Don't get triggered. All this, that's another thing, is there's so much fighting, and all the fighting is I'm right, you're wrong. That's it. Yeah. That's it. It's people trying to say, you need to see life the way I see it, or you're wrong. But we all see life differently, clearly. So to me, it should be about conversations. What can we learn from each other? It's symbiosis, right? How do we interact properly with each other? And rather than being a troll at the edge and screaming, my life isn't working and I can't work it out. I'm just such a victim. Well, great.
And it's your fault.
It's all your fault. Well, that's exactly exactly.
Yeah, well, and like I said, the division comes from this duality, the opposite polarities, rather than that coming and being unified into an energy, right, for good, for creation, right, for this symbiosis with our environment. The world wants us in these dual division, left, right, black, white, red, blue. I mean, it is crazy, and it's so much. So I don't think it's any more prevalent than in the so-called politics of the United States. It's this two-party system is just a joke. It's the uniparty. They're all feeding themselves from the same exact trough. They act like they hate each other, but behind the scenes, they're really like doing all these backward steals and going, okay, how are we going to manipulate this next thing and this next thing and this next thing? I mean, and then you talked about the markets. It's like, even if you put that market on your own private property, the regulators are going to come and they're going to try and stop it somehow. There's going to be some fine involved, or you can't do it there, or you can't exchange these goods for free because we can't tax them, right?
Yeah. So, sorry, I just cut out a bit there. Yeah. Authority, right? They just want to charge us for everything, but that's another belief thing, right? We believe we've got to pay all these fines, and we've said it. Everyone says it for a long time. If everyone just stood up and said no, that everything would change. But that's kind of an excuse too. I can't do anything because no one else is doing it. Well, I think that this is going to be a community-based thing, and it's going to change community by community and spread out. So just go and do it, right? Take over the council. Take over your local council. Find a town. It's happening around here. People are literally buying up towns around here because there's little old towns, with cheap land. They've got, like hospitals and things. There's one town and the hospital's for sale, and these people are going to buy it, and they're going to buy the whole town and run it and become the council. And this is how we can do things. There's always options, I think, is what we need to understand. That because if there's no option, then again you're straight back to believing a story, and someone else is telling you how to live.
Right.
If you don't have more than, I used to say 2 options, but really it's 3. If you don't have more than 3 options, you're being told something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there is no choice in voting.
Right. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream here and cut, but stay on just for a minute. But we're going to peace out, everybody. Much love to all. I want to thank Campbell for having this chat and hope that we'll have more in the future, and look forward to seeing you. Go join the community on the founders.life. And much love to everybody.
Thanks.